Do you see? There
Yeah.
should be this right here.
I think I'm muted.
No.
Oh, I'm talking.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yeah.
You want to hit the green and then mute it.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, welcome. We're going to get started very shortly. Oh, okay. Because there's a background. For those of you who are not in Michigan, congratulations. I hope it's warmer there than it is here. We've got below zero wind chills.
We could feel you here in Chicago, too.
We're going to be 80 degrees in LA, so sorry.
Well, there are compensations, right?
We like the
I
cold
just spent
weather
the
anyway.
weekend in Hoboken and New York City. It was plenty cold there. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the webinar on nonprofit social enterprise hosted by the National Network for Arab American Communities. We are taping this session, so the audio and the PowerPoint will be available on the NAAC website at www.nnaac.org. And we're going to reference that site a couple times during the webinar. It's a resource that's evolving, and we hope that that's something that you take advantage of. What I'd like to do is just run through the agenda, and then we'll have very quick introductions to people on the calls, and then we'll put people on mute and get into the content. We will take you off mute from time to time for questions and comments and sharing. In the meantime, for anybody who would rather than just say their question or comment, you can type in the lower part of your instruction box. You'll see a section that says type message here. Geeta Dager, who is on the NAAC staff, who's assisting with this call and is the communications staffer for NAAC, will be monitoring those messages, and anybody who raises their hands to be called on through that same panel. And that'll also be something that she'll break in from time to time with any questions or hand raising that goes on there. Okay. So what we're going to cover today in an hour or less is to talk about the difference between social enterprise and simple earned income strategies for a nonprofit organization. We're going to talk about helping you determine if you're ready for this kind of activity. Talk about the kinds of social enterprise activities that other people have done and that you might consider. Some real life examples. We'll talk a bit about the planning process that needs to go into this, the kinds of structures that you might set up legally and management-wise, where you might find the money to get off the ground, some legal and political issues that need to be kept in mind, and we've got a good number of resources that we want to point you to for further reading and support. So before we get into all that, want to give people a chance to briefly introduce themselves. So if you could give your name, your position, and your organization and what city you're located in, please. And let's start with Jordan.
Okay, I'm on with REMIT. I'm Jordan O'Grobly, the ED of the Leventon Cultural Center in Los Angeles, where the weather's warm.
Hi, I'm Rima. I'm also in the Leventon Cultural Center.
Rima, can you get in a little closer to the speaker, please, or the phone?
Can you hear me better this way?
Yes, that's fine.
You give us your last name.
Okay, great.
Mike, this is Shana Aliswad from the Center for Arabic Culture in Boston.
Hi, this is Ruba Salman. I'm the Executive Director of the American Syrian Arab Culture Association in Troy, Michigan.
Welcome, Ruba.
Thank you.
Who else do we have on the call?
Hi, this
Hello,
is
my name is Omar Shaker from Arab American Family Services in Bridgeview, Illinois, and I am the VISTA volunteer.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Kate with the Center for Arabic Culture in Boston.
Hi, Gabe.
Hi, Mike.
Who else do we have?
Yeah, Wada Haddad from Michigan, Grand Rapids. I am the founder and the president of North Haven Southwest Michigan Service.
Great. Glad to have you here. Anyone else? Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? And is there an echo coming through at all?
Just a little bit.
Can you hear okay?
Perfect.
Okay, terrific. If that changes, by all means, give us a shout. So let's talk about the difference between a social enterprise and a simple earned income strategy. Earned income, very often it's things like to an event that we're putting on, things of that nature. A social enterprise is really very much like a small business that you're putting together for two reasons, typically. One is that there's a social good that's associated with doing this work. The other, for most nonprofits, is that you're expecting to make a profit so that profit can then be plowed back into supporting the other work of the organization. It doesn't have to be a freestanding enterprise. It can be a department or a division, but it's really seen as something relatively contained and like you're owning and operating a small business. Okay, and we'll talk about some of the different structures that you can approach. It is not recommended, and it wouldn't be considered a social enterprise to start something that is completely unrelated to your mission. Where, for example, a cultural organization might start running a used car lot because that's a way that you could make some money to support the cultural work of your organization. This should be mission-related. If it is not mission-related, there are going to be tax consequences. The IRS reads mission-related relatively liberally, but it should be something that anybody in the community, including members of your board, would look at that and be able to say, yes, that activity relates to what they're trying to accomplish as an organization, and it certainly makes sense for them to be doing it. Okay, so it's a market-driven business model addressing a social issue. And a point I want to make about being market-driven is that when we provide nonprofit services, typically we're not necessarily competing, although sometimes we are, with a commercial enterprise. when you're running a social enterprise like we're talking about today, you're very much in competition with the other people that are out there, so that it's going to make a difference in not only in what you charge, but how you market and what the expectations of your customers are going to be. They're going to expect the same high level of service from a nonprofit providing a daycare program, for example, as they will from a for-profit operating a daycare. And you're in a position where if it's a quality program, you can charge market rate. And that's part of the decisions that we'll talk about, is that setting that pricing, and doesn't make a difference whether your people who are normally your clients are going to be taking advantage of that enterprise as well. We already talked about being mission-related. It's also important for the organization to be thinking about what are the financial goals, and being very hard-nosed about when do we think that we'll be able to hit a break-even point? Where do we, what sort of profit do we expect to be able to make from this, and what are we going to do with it? Or is this going to be simply self-supporting? This is not just another fundraising strategy. This is a different approach to serving the community through an enterprise. It is not necessarily just a way to make money. The nature of the service and how it serves the community is an important part of how you define and operate a social enterprise. Like any small business, these enterprises can have a very, very high failure rate. One of the sources that I looked at that was relatively conservative showed that within 4 years, over half of small businesses fail. And even though the chances of failing decrease year by year, within 4 years, half of them are gone. And that means that all of that initial investment is gone. So it's something that you think about hard and long before you get into this kind of activity. Want to encourage people that are thinking about not so much social enterprise, but also thinking about earned income strategies, to take a look at the webinar that we did last December of 2011. Both the audio and the PowerPoint with all the resources is on the NAAC website. This is in the resources section of the NAAC website. You'll see when you click on resources at the top of the page, you'll see very quickly the webinars that we've had over the last couple years, and there are PowerPoints for all of them and audio for most of them. And we're always happy if you have any questions at all about any of that material or would like additional consultative support. We're as far away as a phone call and an email, and always happy to work with our members and other organizations on those issues, but especially our members. Okay, we're not advancing here. Okay, so lots of discussion around the organization, the management team, the board, and other people when you're thinking about getting into a social enterprise. The board support, after they've had their discussion, has to be a lot stronger than lukewarm. There has to be very strong board support, because this is going to take not only some financial resources, but they have to recognize that this is going to call for their attention, and it's going to call for a lot of management time attention. So this is going to be time away from other tasks. So this better be a priority. There has to be an internal champion, somebody in the organization who really believes very strongly in this activity and can carry it forward and get other people to buy in and carry it forward in times when it's not looking very good. and to get through those rough spots and mobilize resources and support to keep it moving forward. You need internal skills. Anytime you're operating a small business, there are human resources issues, there are financial management, there are marketing, there are legal issues. So do you have the internal resources or very quick access to the resources that you're going to need to be able to operate what amounts to a small business? Do your internal operations for management systems, are they in a position to support it? Your financial management system, to be able to pay vendors quickly, to be able to collect from people who owe money very quickly and keep that cash flow going, to be able to pay taxes if there's unrelated business income tax and that sort of thing. If there are employees, and there typically are, and especially as they may turn over with some regularity, do you have the HR, the human resources issues to be able to sustain that activity? Many nonprofits are too small, and the executive director is also the human resources director and the chief marketing director and the chief fundraiser and 6 other things. And does it make sense to add another job of being the manager of a social enterprise to the portfolio of an executive director who's wearing many other hats? Do you have the marketing support because you're out there competing with many for-profits that have good size marketing budgets, and you can get a certain leg up, a certain credibility from being a nonprofit, but other people discount a nonprofit offering a service, and so you may have to overcome that through marketing. So do you have the marketing support to be able to make this social enterprise successful? Is it a mission-related idea? Again, we're going to keep going back to that this is something that supports your mission even if it doesn't make money. This is something that is part of accomplishing why you're there as an organization. And then where are you going to get the money? If your projections say that it's going to be 4 or 5 years to profitability, and it's much better to be conservative about that and liberal about how much money it's going to cost. What do those projections look like, and how are you going to sustain that expense over time if you're already in a tight financial situation? So a few things that would maybe scare some people off, but it's important if you're thinking about getting into this. So what kind of things could you do in the way of a social enterprise? Some of the things that are most popular for nonprofits to do are education and training. And that's typically where there's a client population that they're working with, like veterans or people with disabilities or people, immigrants, for example. And they're operating an education program like ESL, English as a Second Language, or they're doing vocational training, something of that nature, to help people in a position where they can be self-sustaining after they leave that education and training. Obviously very popular with the Salvation Army and Goodwill and lots of other organizations is to operate a retail or a thrift store. Some of the other retail things that we've seen, Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream people, have made franchises available to nonprofits in a few communities. And right here in Detroit, although not many people are thinking about ice cream today, there's a Ben & Jerry's that's operated by Goodwill Industries in our downtown area. Many organizations get into consulting. If there's a particular expertise that's available on your staff or amongst your staff that you can go out and sell, then that's something that you can do. Food service and catering, another possibility. And again, that can be linked to working with the people that that you serve. We have a shelter and a vocational program for people who are homeless and for people who are coming out of substance abuse rehab here in Detroit. They operate a family-style restaurant where the people that they're working with can get what amounts to on-the-job experience and training in food service, and then take that experience out into the quote, real world, unquote, for unsubsidized employment. Many cultural organizations operate an arts venture. Maybe it's you think about the museum stores in art museums that you see. We see places where artists that the organization's working with might sell some of their production, hang it on the walls at around the office, around the public space where maybe there are concerts, for example, and people see those hanging there with prices on them and how to purchase them. And a proportion of that goes to the organization, as well as providing income for the artists. So lots and theater troupe. Maybe there are people who could go out and put on puppet shows for children's birthday parties and bring in some income to the organization, or a musical group that would go out and work at weddings and receptions and that sort of thing. So lots and lots of possibilities on the arts end. But what you could be thinking about is what your organization and what the people who are associated with your organization are already good at, and what people would be willing to pay for. Things that they're already purchasing, like child care, like restaurant food, like a venue where they could put on a party or a wedding reception, or if you've got space where somebody could have a business meeting. What are the community needs that are in short supply? Is there a dearth? Maybe you've got a community where there isn't a lot of good after-school child care available, and that's something that the community needs. So this is where that marketing research comes in, to look at what does the community need that makes sense related to your mission that you might be able to put together. And then, of course, what would be profitable, assuming that most social enterprises, you're looking to make some money over and above expenses that can be plowed back into the organization. What can be constrained in such a way that it'll actually turn a profit? I worked for Lutheran Social Services in Michigan for about 6 years. They operated many programs that were either losing money or breaking even, but they also had some market rate senior housing where a really high-end audience was paying top dollar to live in a very nicely constructed facility with very nice meals and activities, and they were charging exactly the same money that the for-profit enterprises that were operating for a very similar audience were charging. And they were spinning off about $1 million a year in profit that you can imagine helped to underwrite nursing homes and immigration services and a homeless shelter and lots of other things. So what could be profitable? How could you engage your clients in some way in this enterprise? Could they be part of the staffing picture, either as employees or volunteers working there? Could they help with the marketing? Could they be suppliers in some way? Could they be clients of the enterprise if you're operating at a pricing structure that they could afford? And then what's something that you could operate at low risk, where it isn't going to take a huge amount of capital, it isn't going to take a huge amount of inventory, and it doesn't take very long to start to turn a profit. So rather than, say, constructing a new building that is years in the opening and years before it starts turning a profit, is there something relatively low maintenance, relatively low cost, relatively quick startup that you could do that is relatively low risk? And maybe that becomes the learning experience. So I'm hoping that people are off of mute at this point, and I'd like to ask, what are some social enterprises that you've seen in your communities and elsewhere that you could describe? Does anybody jump in? You just identify yourself and then tell us about the enterprise.
My name is Omar from Bridgeview, Illinois. We've seen some child care services here that's been used, keeping the children at the like child care places and of that nature.
Mm-hmm. And does the word get around from what you've seen about quality and pricing pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have, after building the trust with the clients through their other work, they've seen the word of mouth, move pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Good. Other examples? And that's a good point. That word of mouth is very inexpensive marketing. And it's very solid because people tend to believe their peers, and obviously there's a flip side to that. If people are dissatisfied for any reason, they actually tell more people than they tell folks if they're satisfied. Other examples that people have seen?
Hi, yes, this is Ruba Saman from Osaka. I think most what I have seen is related to religious places like churches who run daycare or classes, language classes, also mosques. So this is usually, they have their own audience. They have their own people who come and attend, so they need these classes. So I think they are making money because it's been going around for years. So whenever there's interest and you're putting out a service that is needed, I think you're going to be succeeding.
Just a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me share a couple examples from here at Access. Some of them have been successful and some not so successful. Our employment and training program put together a temporary labor program where folks would be able to get a group of workers to be able to come in and, say, work in their small manufacturing activity on a temporary basis. This was not particularly successful, and I think they decided that part of it was that they really did not have the staffing levels necessary to be able to go out and promote this in the community and make it work. So there was a lesson there. The Arab American National Museum has a gift shop that is, I think, relatively successful. I'm not sure what kind of money they're making, but it's something they feel like it's certainly well worth keeping going, and it gets products out into the community as well as potentially turning a profit. And it's the sort of thing that people like to see when they come to a museum. The same museum has offered contracted cultural sensitivity training and cultural information training. For example, if you're a business and you're sending people to the Middle East, or you're a business and want to know how to relate to people of Arab extraction in southeastern Michigan, they thought that would be something they knew very well, and they could make that work and make some money at it. And again, not having enough staff devoted to marketing and managing that enterprise meant that it really didn't go anywhere fast. Another example was a marketing consulting effort. Again, this was part of, this might have come out of the headquarters program, but the idea was that there were businesses that wanted to know how to relate to the Arab American community in southeastern Michigan. And the notion was that Access staff would act as consultants for that. And this is another example of how things can fail. The folks who were managing this hooked up with a local business person who was essentially going to run the enterprise and share part of the profits with Access. And it turned out to be the wrong person. He was not successful, so there were no profits to share. So the lesson there is, if you're going to partner with another person or another organization, another business, another organization, make sure that it's the right person, that they have the right track record, the right skills, or things may not be going anyplace fast. Some other successful enterprises, going back to consulting. When I worked for the Michigan Nonprofit Association, we used our employees who had expertise and around issues around nonprofit management. And on a contract basis, we would help organizations with things like strategic planning, or how to improve their volunteer program, or how to build their board of directors. And we were very careful about looking at what for-profit consultants charge for those kind of services, and made sure that we were getting sort of full value and earning some really good income from that kind of a program. So we're going to have to move along pretty quickly as things are not, we want to get through the whole thing. I think everybody who's worked with foundations and with governmental funders knows about logic models. Want to encourage you using a logic model as you're thinking about a social enterprise. What's going to have? What are the inputs that are going to have to go into it? What are the activities, the outputs? What sort of initial outcomes can you expect to come out of this? And then what might be the more longer-term outcomes. And so that, for example, if you were putting together a program where youth were going to be doing, say, bicycle repair, the input would be the young people, and activity would be training the young people in how to do bicycle repair. They would actually do the repair, and then the outputs would, as you move along, would look like things like the students graduate from the training. They then are more motivated together individuals who have more direction. They graduate from high school. They enter into living wage careers. You need to think about your business plan. We're going to talk a little bit about the actual business plan, but think about who the audience is for that plan. It's not only the board of directors, but it's the potential funders, and it will become the sort of the guide for how you're managing the business on an ongoing basis. So what goes into the business plan? And we have lots of examples and things that we can share with you, but you're doing an overview. What's the basic idea that you got? How does it relate to your mission? Talking about what is the market? Why is this going to be accepted? Why is it going to be successful in the community? Why does it make sense for your organization to be doing it? What do you bring to the table as an organization that's going to make this work? And including any business partnerships that you're going to bring to the table. What's the management team look like? You've seen this in a lot of your grant proposals. You're always putting in who's going to work on this project, and it's part of the credibility of why this is going to be successful. Again, what is the expected social impact? So this is not just any enterprise, but it's a social enterprise. So what's the social impact of it? Like people getting trained to be more successful in careers, or people having a safe place for their kids to be after school. And then the hard work of laying out the goals and the timeline and the benchmarks and the financial overview, including how do you expect the profit and loss to go. And really strongly encourage you to be very hard-nosed about, especially the finances, and how long you think things will take on the benchmarks. It's very often that people who, when they see that it's going to take longer than they had hoped to reach break even, they start to fudge the numbers on income or expenses to move forward that break even point. Would encourage you very strongly not to do that. You may be setting yourself up for big time disappointment. And then obviously the contact information. Some of the structures that people have used, this is most typical. It's not a freestanding organization, but a division or department of your nonprofit. Another 15% social enterprises, they've set up a for-profit subsidiary. You can see with these other structures where you need a good lawyer and a good accountant to help you put this piece together. Nonprofit subsidiaries are pretty popular, as are joint ventures. Franchises are not very popular nor very successful. Studies have shown that getting into franchises is not only expensive, but has an excruciatingly high failure rate for nonprofits. And then there's a few other approaches. A very typical setup is an LLC, a limited liability company or corporation. There's a few fancy things like an L3C or a B corporation, which is a kind of a hybrid corporation, profit and nonprofit. These are just starting to get some interest and probably fancier than most of us would be taking a look at. So where's the money come from? These are in rank order from studies of where nonprofits got their money for social enterprise. Foundations very often are willing to make grants to get this sort of thing off the ground, but they're going to be looking at it with a very careful eye. Individual donations, an angel out there who maybe is an entrepreneur themselves, who likes the idea of your organization getting entrepreneurial. Taking money from your general operating funds, that means that you've got some slack in there, government grants, corporate donations, your reserves. And this is one of the reasons why we always encourage people to, every year that you possibly can, to budget for and try to achieve excess revenue, a surplus at the end of the year. Those reserves that you build up allow you to get through the lean times when maybe there's some financial failures, but it also allows you the capital to be able to start new activity, and social enterprise is one of those. Equity, of course, and then commercial bank loans. Commercial bank loans are the least likely, and we all know that banks want to loan money to people who don't really need it. So that's the toughest one. Just want to give you a note or a heads up that you need to be prepared to deal with some organizational change issues. People are going to be affected by this new project and the amount of tension that it's getting from management and getting from the board. And sometimes those effects may be negative. There may be some jealousy from some of the current programs about, oh, this is the fancy new thing that we're doing that's getting all the attention, and how come I'm not getting as much attention? So how do we keep the new program in the context of the overall activities, all the different things that we're doing as a nonprofit? We all know that the more people are engaged in the planning process, the more they're listened to, the more supportive they are. And you need everybody to be supportive, including your employees and volunteers. So are there some ways that you can engage them in the planning process, like the marketing study? And then how do you position this business with key audiences like your funders, and any regulators that you're dealing with, any associations or collaborations that you're part of that may have some thoughts about this, and thinking that all through. There are a few legal and political considerations I want you not to miss. One is the tax treatment. There should not be taxes, either federal or local. If this is a mission-related enterprise, you may have to pay sales tax. That depends on your state. But you shouldn't have to pay income tax unless it's an unrelated business. So if you're doing something that is not related to your business, say you're somebody, you got a hold of a building somehow that you're not in, and you're just going to rent out the space and take the income from those rentals. Well, you're not. Your mission is not providing a business space for people. It's to do something cultural or social services or a mix, and so running that office building or that apartment building, you're going to have to pay unrelated business income tax on all of the income that you get from that, and you need to make sure that your accountant is on top of helping you plan and deal with that. There's an operating question that people have about, do you need to pay your employees of the social enterprise minimum wage? And there are occasions, depending on your state, where you do not have to. There's, in some states, what's called a training wage. But I want to encourage you to think very seriously about going ahead and paying at least minimum wage to your employees, just so they can be closer to a living wage, so that you can compete with other places where they could work, and that you could retain people. There is a very, very, beyond the ethics, there's a very, very high cost to employee turnover. It's not only the cost of hiring, but the cost of disruption to the enterprise. And so you want to be careful about that. Bye. Okay. And then dealing with competitors. Ask the YMCA about the grief that they get from the local for-profit fitness centers, because they're considered subsidized by United Way and their tax status. People have even gone after the Girl Scouts because their cookie manufacturers and the Girl Scouts are perceived as cutting into their business. So if you're thinking about opening a child care center and you've got a for-profit child care center down the street or another nonprofit child care center, those are competitors that you're going to have to deal with. And they may be, in some cases, people who have been sponsors for your events. They may have been donors. They may have been people you collaborated with on other activities like advocacy. And so thinking and talking with them about this new activity and how it might affect your relationship. A few other issues that are not very minor. One is, what if you're starting a program like a child care center and your clients can't afford, your typical clients that you're offering, say, immigration services to, can't afford your rates? Does that create political problems for you? Does that create client relations problems? There are certainly some ways around that. You can offer a sliding scale fee structure. You can offer scholarships. Say you offer, we've got Augustin Seats of Culture in Philadelphia operates a summer camp. They offer scholarships. Same thing with the Heritage Council up in Flint, Michigan. They get donations and offer scholarships so that some of their clients and other folks who can't afford it can get there. So it helps not only provide the service for people, but it helps them public relations wise, so that you're not looking like you're cutting out the people that you're supposed to be serving. If you've got employees for this enterprise, especially if they're clients, you've got a real paradox there, or a conundrum, where you've got to be serving the people who are paying for that service. And what if you've got an employee who is showing up late, or they're providing very poor service? You're running a catering service, and somebody on the serving line has an off time and starts yelling at one of the guests of the party that you're catering. So how do you handle that? Not just in the immediate, but in the longer term. You may be in a position of firing some clients because they're not really ready for this job in this enterprise. And if you don't, after you've tried to help them along and help them succeed with counseling and supervision, they could sink that enterprise very quickly. And so it's making those kinds of very, very tough decisions when you're operating a social enterprise. Picking your vendors. You may have people that have been sponsors for your organization, or somebody's on the board and they'd like to be a vendor for your social enterprise. You better be making sure that they're providing you the best price and the best product and service, or choosing them can sink your social enterprise. Are you going to be ready to sue somebody for non-payment? If you've provided a service and it's somebody in your community that knows people on your board, and they say, well, something came up and I can't pay, but if you don't collect, your cash flow just goes down the tubes and your social enterprise may fail. Are you ready for that kind of hard-nosed small business kind of activity? And the last piece that I'd offer is the conventional wisdom is you're dealing with people who are operating in the small business world. You need to learn, if you're coming out of liberal arts rather than business, and nonprofits rather than business, learning to speak the small business lingo, especially around financial statements like profit and loss statements. You've got to be able to operate at that kind of level like you're a small business person. So I'm hoping everybody is off of mute again. We've talked a lot of stuff about social enterprise. How does this sound for people so far? Does this sound like something you want to continue to explore? Anybody?
I mean, there's great avenues for this. So obviously you need to take in the risk, but it seems that if you are able to land something that is along with your mission, it looks like it can really, really benefit an organization.
Yep, absolutely. Other thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I want to continue doing that because it's important for us in West Michigan. We need the service.
Okay, and you're a small business person, so you know what it takes.
What is that?
I say you're a small business person, so you know what it takes.
Of course, yeah, it's a lot. Encourage and faith. So we have all these. So far, it's important.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. We're running out of time, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on the resources. You've got these, but there is an organization called the Social Enterprise Alliance. These folks are nonprofit people and consultants. They know about social enterprise, and so they're take a look at their website, get to know them. There are lots and lots of resources through SEA, including a nonprofit enterprise forum. This is over 7,000 individuals who have signed up for this Yahoo group, and what you can do there, if you can just monitor it and watch it, or you can put a question in, something you're thinking about doing, an issue that you have a question about, and you'll find a whole raft of experienced people and consultants responding to that question in a very immediate way. So it's a really good tool to have available. Speaking of tools, there's a nonprofit called SeedCo that has put together a toolkit for how to put together your business plan. And I've given you their website. This is a very thick document, but it gives you a lot of detail about how to build your business plan for your social enterprise. There's actually a university center on social entrepreneurship. I haven't explored this very much, but you could you could Google the Center for the Advancement of Social Enterprise or CASE, and I'm sure there's some good resources there. I want to make sure not to miss that.
Hey, Mike, can I jump in and just ask a question?
By all means.
Okay. I do have the Social Enterprise Alliance book called Succeeding a Social Enterprise, and I recommend that to everybody. I've read through that.
Okay.
And they on their website they have a number of free downloads in PDF format, including like a whole business plan and all kinds of stuff. But my question is this: we have, right now we're in our small cultural center stage, where we basically have a storefront that includes the main performance space, the gallery, bookstore. When we started a few months ago, kind of low-key cafe operation. We don't have a lot of clients because we don't advertise the cafe.
Yep.
But we actually have a lot of potential space, both indoors and outdoors. And for a relatively low amount of money, we could have a bona fide cafe operation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're debating whether we want to allocate those resources. I mean, we would hire baristas, kitchen person, and all that.
Yep.
But the question is, I mean, a cafe, if it's well attended, can potentially bring in anywhere from $150,000 to $1 million a year.
Yep.
So we're just kind of debating whether we should do that, and we're focusing right now more on grant writing and just trying to raise the seed money we need to expand. But one argument that someone has made is, hey, this is a great location. There's no cafe around here. If you do this cafe, you can always keep it, and when you move to 11th Center, you can just have another cafe in that new location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just a couple thoughts, and I'll open it up to other people after we finish running through a few more resources. But we all know that well, first, this is not a full-scale restaurant probably, but
no.
We all know what the failure rate is, or that there's excruciating a high failure rate for restaurants. I'd be spending a lot of time looking at a market, doing market analysis.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that people in your neighborhood would like to see, that they would take advantage of? I think that'll help drive what you offer and when you offer it. Getting really good legal advice, not only about and accounting advice, not only in terms of running the numbers, but trying to keep your costs down.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have some new liability issues,
mm-hmm.
And so that becomes something to consider. So making sure you have good insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a really good policy.
But I can see some good possibilities around. Okay, let's get some artists' work up on the walls for sale, and everybody.
We do all that already. I mean, we have a very active gallery.
Yeah, people that you can sell, that you can market your other activities to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are lots of people that have done it. That you can take a look at, learn from their experience, and we can help with that. That's why I've got NNAAC down there as the last bullet on this page. Is we're happy to work with any of our members in depth on helping you with planning a social enterprise or most anything else.
Well, they say.
Let me just run through the other resources, and then we'll open it up for other questions.
Okay.
So. There's another publication called Social Enterprise: A Portrait of the Field, which some of my content was taken from. It's a study of what's being done out there. And this is where we learned, for example, where people were getting their capital. So this is something that we can put on in our resources section of the website, but in the meantime, we can send you a PDF to anybody who wants it. You can always use any of the resources that are available for small businesses, like the SBA, the Small Business Administration. I wouldn't count on them for loans, but for expertise. There's associated with them is the Service Corps of Retired Executives, who are volunteers. Every state has a small business development center with lots of resources. And Michael and Sarah, who works for the Access Employment and Training department, has some experience in training in social enterprise. He is currently putting together a program where Access is going to be training Arab Americans and other people in southeastern Michigan in how to start and run a small business. So they've got lots of resources that they've pulled together for that and some experience. So we've given you Michael's email address there. He's happy to receive calls and emails from people. Other questions or comments before we bring it to a close?
Do you know how long it'll take for this PowerPoint to be posted on the website?
Early next week?
Early next week?
No, probably by the end of the day tomorrow.
End of tomorrow?
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. And I don't, unfortunately, I don't have I'm sorry, I do have. I want to let people know that our next webinar is going to be March 19th, same time, and the topic is dealing with difficult people.
Good topic.
March 19th.
Topic, Mike.
And then the other webinars that will be coming out for the rest of the year, we'll have one on annual reports, how to put together a good annual report in different formats. We'll do one on a financial management topic. We'll do one on major gifts fundraising, and we'll do one before the end of the year on diversifying partnerships, collaborators.
Do you mind going back one page so I can look at the resources one more time?
I'm sorry?
Can you go back one slide? I was just looking at the last resource with Michael. Thank you.
So, other questions or comments or experiences to share?
Just final thing, because I'm putting together the shelter for Arab women in West Michigan, what do you advise us in West Michigan when I take care of the shelter? What kind of difficulties we can prevent?
Well, certainly an existing shelter can give you lots of good advice, and they'll be willing to on how to set up a shelter for Arab American women. A social enterprise related to the shelter, I think I'm stuck on that one. Maybe something where the women who are residents of the shelter could be doing some work that would bring them income.
That's what other organizations trying to empower those women in shelter to make them independent and work and earn money. So we need to train them how to do that. Like many things in one.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. I thank you for your participation. I hope that there's been a germ or two here that's been helpful. Do take advantage of our support if there's anything that we can do help you think through and plan a social enterprise or virtually anything else. And take advantage of these resources that we've shared, including Michael. And we will wish you good health and stay warm.
Thank you.